that led to you starring in this trilogy?
So I had worked with Agnieszka Holland on Europa. So I met him, I think through Agnieszka first, and they were very close, very friendly. They had gone to the Łódź Cinema School together, like many other directors from Poland. And I loved his cinema. I mean, his films had been out in France for a while. The Decalogue, but also all these other films, Camera Buff, Trains of Chances, Blind Chance, it's called, okay. And so he was very, very, well known in France at that time, and very well respected, so I knew his work, I loved his work. So I met him, and then I did an audition for Double Life of Veronique. It didn't go very well. I didn't like what he asked me to do on camera. I'm not going to get into it. But anyway, I just wasn't very comfortable. A sexy gesture, and I was like, fuck you, I'm not going to do a male fantasy of a sexy gesture. So, already I was like that. Anyway, but he did like me anyway as an individual, and he thought I would be good for this film, where my character was a bit more bold and a bit, has a certain kind of a personality and stuff. And then he offered me a part in blue, but not the lead part, another part in blue. I can't remember the character. And I was like, no, I don't want to play a part that's not, the character that's central to the story. It was really a side character and stuff. And then he offered me this one, and this one I really loved the script. And we decided to work together on this.
Well, I'd love to hear about what it was like working under his direction, because I've heard he was extremely detail-oriented on set.
He was very detail-oriented, and sometimes he was a bit obsessive, and I will never forget until the day I die, then I'll forget. That he would always he would do close-ups, of the sex scene where I have an orgasm, but he would have his watch and time me after 10 seconds you will want more, and after 10 seconds it was really not. It was tough, because he was right under the camera, and sometimes he was chain smoking, like 5 packs a day. So literally, I don't know if you know those kind of people from the past. They would light a cigarette when they were finished with one with the cigarette, just constantly lighting. So there was never ending smoking. And actually, his films, you can see in the light, a lot of it is smoke, the smoke from his cigarettes. Chain smoking. Yeah, hazy and dreamy. It's always smoking. So because he's right under the camera, usually really close to the actors with those giant blue eyes and glasses like this, He was very funny. I mean, I personally really got along with him, and I found him extremely funny. I know it sounds, he was funny, and we would play a Tetris together, because, he would play Tetris, and then I would play Tetris, and I would beat him in Tetris, and then he would be pissed off. And I know it sounds weird to imagine Krzysztof Kieślowski spending all day playing Tetris and smoking cigarettes, but really that's what it was. And he was obsessed with Tetris, so we would play, and especially, I think they didn't have many video games at the time in Poland during communist era, but I think Tetris is Russian, isn't it? Or it was or Czech or something. So anyway, Tetris was the video game that they had in Poland during communist Poland, so he was really detail-oriented, and sometimes I felt a little bit suffocated. And one day we couldn't find the scene, and he was like, "It has to be like this and like this and like that," and I was like, "Let me try something." And I tried something, and he's like, "Why didn't you tell me earlier that it was going to be perfect this way?" And I was like, "Because you're so detail-oriented." He's like, "Yeah, but sometimes you have to step in and do your own thing." So he was happy that I was, and then I relaxed into it, and I was offering more ideas, and it became like sort of a smooth ride from then on.
Well, how did working with a master like Kieślowski shape your own approach to directing, if at all?
I don't know about directing because you cannot imitate someone like Kieślowski, or you can be inspired by him, but I feel that, you know, I always think you're the director. I mean, I feel that I'm the director that I am because I am who I am, you know, and he was the director that he was because he was who he was, you know. I mean, I spent a little time with, oh, he just passed away, I forgot his name.
The writer?
No, the director, oh my God, it just slipped my mind, the greatest director, Blue Velvet, David Lynch, thank you. And I was always thinking, like, you know, when you meet David, because I know people that love David Lynch and they try to make films like David Lynch and stuff, and when you meet David Lynch, you understand that that's the film that he makes are David Lynch movies because he is David Lynch, you know what I mean? Like, you can't fake this. For him, they're normal films. You know, they're like, that's the norm for him. So with Kieślowski, his sense of observation of people was very, very specific, and he makes films that are who he is, you know, deep inside. So, and actually, in that sense, he inspired me, because he told me to be true to who I am as a director and as a writer, and I think that stayed with me in a way. We were discussing how, you know, a little bit of truth, and then you can grow into more of a fiction, but it has to come from a true place. So in that sense, and we spent a lot of time after White, and after he had finished Red and stuff, and all the trilogy, we spent a lot of time talking about screenwriting. He was doing a class in Switzerland, and basically he was coming back to Paris all the time, and every time I would see him and we would discuss writing and being a director. He was probably the most supportive, with also Volker Schlondorf, the two directors that were the most supportive of me becoming a director and a writer. But they were friends. Schlondorf was married to Margaret von Trotta, film director, and Volker Schlondorf, he did the Tin Drum in many films, a German guy. I worked with him when I was 20, and Kieślowski was very good friends with Agnieszka Holland, and so they were very supportive of women filmmakers, so he was very supportive.
That's beautiful. And I've heard that Kieślowski and even Jean-Luc Godard, who you worked with at the beginning of your career, were both supportive of your filmmaking aspirations. So can you talk about the advice or encouragement that they imparted? I know you touched on it a little, but is there anything else that you remember?
Well, Kieślowski was supportive, really like giving me advice on writing, on directing, and all that. He was horrified that I was going to New York Film School at NYU. He didn't love America. That's fair. First of all, it was, and he didn't. It's not because he was pro-communist or whatever, but he didn't love America. And also America was starting to be like non-smoking everywhere, so for him, it was hell, literally. It's like, you know, there's a place in hell, it's a place with no smoking, you know, for him. So yeah, so when I was going to NYU, he was like, why are you going to NYU? You should go. What's funny is that a year before I had been shooting in Poland in Łódź, and I went to spend some time in the school of Łódź where he had learned filmmaking, and it's so bleak and so depressing. Like, the most depressing, I'm sure they fixed it since, but in the 90s, it was like the most depressing place on planet Earth. I mean, you had holes of, you know, bombing still there, nothing had been fixed. It was insane. It was actually amazing, you know. That nuclear plant, and, you know, I remember the whole crew went to swim in a river. It was actually the cooling, yeah. No, I didn't go in there. But anyway, that's on another film in Poland I did before that. But anyway, so, it's just like jumping there. No, Godard, it was different, because Godard, I didn't know yet I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I knew a little bit because I told them when I met him to act in a film with Godard, I said, oh, you know, just let me come to the set at least, even if you don't cast me, I don't care, I just want to see how you work and stuff. And he's like, well, I'm gonna hire you so you get paid and you see how I work. So he was very nice, and also he wrote me a letter at the end of the film. It was called Detective, and then I did History of Cinema with Jean Godard, and also I did King Lear, which was in, 87 or something, with Molly Ringwald, and wow, all those things. I still remember some of it. I mean, I didn't remember David Lynch's name. I don't know. It's a name thing. Really, the names is weird, but everything else is very clear in my memory. So yeah, Godard, he wrote me a letter when I was right after Detective, saying, you know, something about keeping my own. You know, they're going to try to control you. Just don't let them control you. You know, about like freedom, which is good. You know, I've done that. You know, I've done that. It got me in a lot of trouble, especially in this town, because, you know, they want to control you, especially agents and managers. But I have a good manager now, he's very nice. I finally have a good one who's not trying to control everything I do. But, you know, it took me 35 years.
Kieślowski's co-writer Krzysztof Kieślowski just passed away a few days ago, so I do want to go back to the script and what was your initial reaction to it, and what about the story captured your interest when you first read it?
Because I knew Christophe a little bit, and I knew his sense of humor, I thought it captured something that was very close to who he was. And I really love that about this film, in particular. For me, for what I love about, you know, it's the closest film to who Christophe was in some ways. And so when I read all three. I read first blue, then white, and then red. There's something about white that made me think of him. This sort of weird, funny, I mean, he was very funny. You know, funny. He had very dark sense of humor, which I really love. Like I was always like looking at him, he's so much salt, and I was like saying that you're gonna die and stuff like that. But you know, we would joke about it. But you know, he eventually died of not salt, probably cigarettes. I really connected to a sense of humor, dark sense of humor, and I thought this film was the closest to who he really was. You know.
And your character Dominique is only in about a third of the film, but her presence is so felt throughout the entire runtime. So can you tell us how you prepared for this role and what Kieślowski kind of directed you to do?
So my approach at first was a little bit like, you know, actor studio-ish version of, French version of actor studio. Which is like trying to approach the character psychologically and all that, and Kieślowski hated that. Like he really was like, oh, don't go into that, it's so boring. You know, it's like I don't want to explain the character psychologically. He was like, who do you think of when you think of her? And I was like, listen, I had a cat when I was a kid called Nanette, and she was out of control, and she was so tense that she couldn't even jump the wall of the little garden that we had with my parents to get laid. She was so tense. So she was like this all the time. I mean, we used to put like paper towel on the end of our to rub her butt because she was in heat all the time. She had to rub on something. Anyway, so we put paper towels. I remember as a kid, it's the most crazy things. And I told that to Christian. And he was like, that's it? That's perfect. So I was thinking all the time of Nanette, you know, the cat. She can't do it.
So that's who you channeled.
That's who I channeled, the cat. But he asked me, and I told him the truth, and I did what he asked me. So I had in mind this cat, which I love, by the way, but she was not manageable. We had to eventually put her away, because she She would attack people. She almost killed my grandmother. She was crazy. She was nuts, like really, really crazy. She would like climb up on the curtains, roll in, wait until we walked by, and then she jumped on our head and rip our face. And she was like, it was fierce cat. I loved her though. She was my favorite cat. Rest in peace. Nanette.
Well, you and Zbigniew Zamachowski are just so brilliant in this together. So I'd love to hear about your experience working with him on this. What do you remember?
So he didn't speak French or English, very few words. So we had a translator, but we really connected. I thought, originally he's more of a comedian, and I really enjoyed his, he was very kind, very sweet, very warm, and we connected right away. We were very, he was also very sweet because I was very young and a bit nervous in some scenes, especially the sex stuff. Always hated doing sex scenes and stuff. And he was very, very helpful and very kind. And that was very nice, you know. It's always very nice to have actors that are, you know, sweet. So, yeah, and he's a wonderful actor. So I could tell from his facial expression and stuff when we were working together, he was very moving, and I just love his acting. It's subtle. It's very beautiful.
He's hilarious.
He's hilarious too. Yeah, which I love. I love working with someone.
So how does your experience as an actor influence the way you direct and vice versa?
How what?
How does your experience as an actor influence the way you direct?
Well, you know, I really, when I prepare the directing, I try to spend as much time as possible with the technical aspect of the film, with the DP, make my shot list and stuff, but then when I start shooting, I really focus on the actors, because they're there and they need all my attention, so I have a tendency to overly focus on the actors. But I've taken care of all the visuals and technical aspect of the film, of the filmmaking before because of that, so I can fully focus on the actors. And something for sure, as a writer, being an actress, it's extremely helpful because you write with the words in your head. You basically hear them. You even act all the parts sometimes, and I do that all the time. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, and it helps tremendously because it really helps your, you know, making it sound natural and all that. So.
The titles in the trilogy correspond with the colors of the French flag and its values of liberty, equality, and fraternity, with white representing equality. So I'd love to hear about your interpretation of what that means in the context of the film.
Well, I remember asking Krzysztof, and he wasn't very clear. I mean, it was kind of like, you know, he didn't want to explain it. He didn't want to make it too literal, you know, equality, but he said in the end they're equal. You know, she's in a foreign country, and he was in a foreign country, and he was in his own jail and stuff. So, you know, now she feels, yeah, he felt this was the equality. But I don't know, I never understood really what equality. Not fully. And I think neither did he. It was kind of more a catchy thing, equality, égalité, fraternité, liberté, égalité, fraternité. It's a good idea, you know. He loves series of things. He did the Decalogue, and you know, so. And I think he wanted to do next hell, heaven, and purgatory. Yeah. So he loved those idea of trilogies or continue, like something symbolic and turn it into stories.
Well, now I'd love to turn it over to the audience. Please project, because I don't think we have mics to go around, and please be succinct. But I saw your hand up first. Go ahead.
I remember how you waved goodbye to him with your fingers, and I think you just explained, maybe inspired by
The cat.
I'm just curious about another gesture, without you explaining the meaning, but how did the ending with you gesturing through the window come about?
So that's something we shot after they had shot everything, because while he was editing, he realized something was missing between them. And he wanted, at first it was just, he would see her from afar and you would make up what she was doing or if it was really her and stuff. And he wanted a little more because he wanted a bit of hope that maybe all this, you know, what is this all about in the end, this revenge on her and stuff. So he gave me an example of, okay, so I haven't seen the film in years.
So I think it's like this, I walk out, we get married again, and we take off and go
Somewhere, right? Something like that. And so, yeah, that's what he wanted, to give something like the possibility of an open ending, or that something else will happen next between them. And he decided to do it while he was editing because he felt it was missing. Like, he felt she needed redemption also, the character of Dominique.
You had to reshoot that ending.
Yes. We went to a studio and they put me behind a grill. Yeah. So yeah, this, he insisted on this. I wasn't like, I was like, I can't do this, no. I think he was really like my cat story. Oh, because of that, she does this? Or it's because of a crazy cat then? All right here.
Hi, my question is very simple and to the point. I was just wondering, do you think a whole project like this could be made today in the current state of European cinema at all?
Can you speak louder?
Can this project of this scope and stuff can be made today? Well, the truth is it's a trilogy. It was not a super expensive film. Those films were not extremely expensive. So yes, if someone, I think it's a possibility. It was not millions and millions and millions. It was quite a contained budget. I remember it not being insanely expensive, you know, and because we intertwined the shoot, it was shot all at once. It was like something like 90 days of shoot, but during a big chunk, it wasn't done like one after another. So we shot pretty much a lot of things, because also we intertwined, like all the films intertwined with each other. So it was kind of shot in one go, and maybe it was not even 90 days, maybe it was less. He was coming from TV, did a lot of TV, did documentaries, so he was pretty fast. Even though we did quite a few takes. I can't remember if it was him or another director that did a crazy amount of takes. No, he wasn't too crazy with takes. So he was pretty conservative when it came to budget and stuff. He came from TV, the Decalogue was done for Polish television, they had no money. So he was used to work pretty conservative. I don't think you could do it, maybe in the US it would cost millions and millions, but in France and Poland in the 90s, I mean, they were very, very moderate budgets, you know. So if it was done in those kind of conditions, like same conditions, possibly. But I don't know if a subject like this would interest anyone to finance. I think it's more the problem. It's not the scope of the films. It's people want. Isn't the only thing that's being made right now in the U.S. is IP or remakes? No, I mean it seems like it's mainly that. So it's going to change maybe. Any question?
Any other questions? Oh, right here. So the question was if you did a lot of rehearsals, was the shot listed?
I'm sure it was shot listed, yes. We didn't do a lot of rehearsals and no improvisation. It was written, we did the scenes, he was very precise in what he wanted and nothing was improvised. No. And everything was planned pretty carefully. And I think that also came from a lot of doing television in the 80s in Poland, and you know, you had a limited budget, you had to be well prepared and shoot as minimum as possible.
So what are you working on now, and what can we expect next from Julie Delpy?
So I have a film that I shot not so long ago called Meet the Barbarians, which is it's a comedy, but not really because it's about refugee. Oh, thank you. It's about refugees, so you know the refugee part is not funny. The racist people part is funny because I think it's better to make fun. At one point, you know, there's nothing else you can do about racism. But and, yeah, there are racist people in France. Surprise. They're everywhere. I'm sure there's some in the audience. No, I'm joking. Thank you. I'm preparing quite many projects actually. I've been writing like almost like a mad person for many years. I say like mad person because I write really a lot. And it looks like I have at least 2 projects that seems to be getting people interested in doing them. So, you know, I'm hoping to shoot 2 films eventually in the next, whatever, 3 years. So.
Well, we cannot wait. But Julie, once again, thank you so much for
Thank you so much.